Hi, thanks for tuning in today. I'm going to make blueberry muffins and you're going to be able to make them at home. It's such a great recipe because it really has the basics of all baking. You get to practice today, right? And this makes 12 minis or 6 bigs. In class, we usually make the minis just in the interest of time. We're going to do a mise en place where we get everything ready ahead of time and you have everything out and pre-measured. And you're going to practice 2 main skills today. One is going to be measuring. I want you to seek that accuracy when it comes to measuring. You're going to use either the nested cups or the liquid cups to choose the right one. You're going to need a measuring spoon. And this is really where if students make mistakes, that is where the mistake usually lies. So today I'm going to teach you how to get some accuracy in measuring, and also choosing the right tool for the job is going to be the other part you'll focus on today. So let's get started. Most of muffins and cookies and lots of other baking really are the same kind of base idea where you take wet bowl, dry bowl, put them together. So we're going to do that here today. I have everything out and ready, and I'll put all the measurements in the comments down below. I have flour. I have butter. I'm going to need some butter soft and some butter cold. That makes an enormous difference in baking. So if one is specific about temperature, know that it will matter, okay? I have some sugar. I have 1 egg, cinnamon, and blueberries. I used fresh, but you can use fresh or frozen. I bet you could use other fruit too. Baking powder, and I have some milk. I'm using rice milk, but you can use whatever kind of milk you want. Okay, so let's get started. We have our wet bowl that we're going to start with. And wet bowl is usually the fat, whether it's butter or oil or something like that, and the egg, vanilla, those liquidy things, but it's also often the sugar as well. And that just kind of helps the sugar dissolve. It's very, very best. I am not going to use an electric mixer today, but this is something, if you have an electric mixer at home, you can use it. I'm using really just a fork and a spatula today because I don't know what you have at home. So I'm going to show you how to use it with just these basics. And it comes out good. All right, so I'm going to start with the butter. And then I have sugar. So it's 1/4 cup of butter, 1/3 cup of sugar. And I'm going to make those two come together. This is where my butter is so soft, right? And I'm just going to smash it. Here's where an electric mixer would be very useful. And this verb is to cream. When you add your butter and sugar in the very beginning, usually you'll see the verb, it says cream, butter, and sugar together. And this is what it is, where the sugar dissolves quite a bit. They become one. Okay. And the electric mixer is nice because it incorporates some air, nice and fluffy. You can see it looks like mashed potatoes, very stuck together. Just get some speed going. Okay, once it looks all together, I'm going to go ahead and add the egg. And get that to become one, come together. You know, people baked before there were electric mixers, so. A fork might do better for this even. Well, I'm gonna save my fork for something else, for the topping later. Comes together. Looks much more goopy now. And everything that I've added so far has been room temperature. So I let my ingredients sit out for about I would say at least 30 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes. So that means I'm going to add the milk, and the milk is also room temperature. If the milk were cold and this wasn't, the milk would cause the butter to chill, right, things to seize up, and vice versa. If the milk were hot, right, if you were adding a hot ingredients, it would change it as well. All right, so that's wet bowl. Let's set that aside. This next part is probably the most important part of the whole recipe. Measuring your flour. When you measure flour, I want you to think, we need these to be light and fluffy, right? We don't want them to be dense, heavy like rocks. So that flour being light and fluffy, maybe you sift it, right? All those things make the flour more light and fluffy. Right, I like to just fluff it before I use it a little bit. All right, and this is going to be 1 cup of flour. So I'm just going to scoop. I'm going to over scoop and then level it off. If I had not enough, I could always, like if it had come up short like that, right, I level off, there's a little gap, I could just spoon a little bit in. The thing you don't want to do, here's your don'ts, you don't want to tap it in any way, right, because that would make it more dense. We don't want to shake it, right, or do things like this, because that'll make it more dense, and I don't want more flour in there. I want the right amount. Many people will use a scale for more accurate measuring, especially for baking. All right, so light and fluffy, over scoop, and then I'm going to level it off. You can use a knife, some people use their finger. So I have 1 cup. That is probably the most important part of this whole entire muffin. All right, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking powder. And again, it's got to be fluffy and leveled off, right? So let's see what happens. Oh, look at this wonderful little tool inside the baking powder. This is so that when I scoop it, it will automatically be level. So as I pull my spoon out, I scrape it against that edge and it becomes perfectly level, right? So that can go in also. That tastes very bad, so you do not want to mess that one up. I'm going to add a little pinch of salt I have over here, literally a pinch. Okay, and I think that's it. That's our dry bowl. And just get a fork and lightly toss that together. And then we can put the 2 bowls together. Okay? If you had massive quantities of flour, I would add it in little sections, but this is not so much. So maybe I'll add half and then get it combined. See, it's very dry looking at first, some lumps. Right, scrape the edges, scrape the bottom. I love using glass because then I can see what's going on in the bottom. Is there flour still stuck there? Rest of the flour goes in, flour mixture. Right, and basically you have your muffin right here. This is muffin batter. The only thing it's missing is blueberries. Once it comes together and it looks like there's no dry spots, everything looks well combined. Scrape the bottom of the bowl one more time. Oh, there's some dry stuff in the bottom, so I have to make sure to get all that. That's it. Just make sure everything is combined in an even way. Okay, the last step is to fold in the blueberries, okay? So it calls for 3/4 cup of blueberries. And these were washed earlier. If I can open them. Okay, sometimes people will coat their blueberries in a little bit of flour before adding them. That's really nice because it kind of keeps them from bursting as much, you know, or getting bleeding out, right? So here's the deal with the fold. All you're gonna do is like flip from the bottom to the top, maybe 2 or 3 times. All right, let's see what it takes, because if I did any more, I would have Smurfberry muffins. Okay, and that's not what we're trying to do. So let's see, here it goes. 1, 2, that's it. That's it. They're through out. Okay? This is the same way we're going to add chocolate chips to chocolate chip cookies later on. I'm going to need to get my crumb topping ready now. So the crumb topping is sugar, about a 1/4 cup of sugar. And then we need some flour. We need 3 tablespoons of flour. Okay. And then 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. Oh, look at this. On the cinnamon, there's this part that opens up so I can pour it out. Right? If I'm measuring over my bowl and extra spills out, what happens? It goes into my food. So I want to make sure not to measure over my bowl. And this is going to be a 1/4 teaspoon. Very small amounts. And again, this is level also. Sometimes you'll see the word heaping, and that means heaping, overflowing spoonful. And then I need my cold butter here. Normally, to make this crumb topping, I would use a pastry cutter or a dough cutter, but I don't have one of those at home. I'm not a big fan of a million tools and all these gadgets or appliances. I really love keeping things simple at home. I think you can do a whole lot with a fork, salt and pepper. So that's always been my approach. So I'm going to use the tines of the fork to smash everything together, and it'll come through and I'll re-smash it. The goal for it is to be crumbly, like gravel, little nuggets, little rocks, but not smooth. I'm not trying to get it creamy. So that's why the butter has to stay cold. Okay? And I'm going to use my thumb, and the butter starts to get coated with the other ingredients, but not totally smushed all together, right? And just move the bowl around, smash with the fork until it becomes like gravel. So what other kind of muffins do you all like? Leave me a comment below. I have to say, I love anything with cranberries. I love the little burst of sour tartness. It's so nice. Banana nut muffins are always reliable and delicious. I definitely prefer them with chocolate chips. Like, who doesn't, right? But the next muffin that I'm gonna do is a carrot cake muffin. It's really carrot cake. And that has a cream cheese frosting, but so incredibly moist. That uses oil instead of butter as the fat, so it changes the consistency a lot. And then the last muffin we do in class is a s'mores muffin with this just beautiful, like, caramelized marshmallow on top. So there it is. It looks like little rocks, pebbles, right? I'm going to stop before it gets to be mushy. I want it to be little chunks that I'm going to drop on top of each muffin before I bake. All right, and if you're not going to use this right away, put it back in the fridge. Or keep your butter in the fridge until and make it at the very last minute would be better. All right, crumb topping. I don't know about you, but I could eat that all by myself, just like that. That's my favorite. All right, so next step, you're going to need a muffin tin. I like to use paper liners. The littles take about 14 to 16 minutes, and the bigs take about 25 minutes at 375. So make sure you preheat your oven before you start. Make sure every muffin gets the same quantity of muffin batter in there. If you have 4 or 5 people in your group, you have to plan ahead, right? Kind of negotiate. The other thing I really like to do is leave a corner one empty, because that way I can grab the tray very easily and quickly. If I had a muffin paper in there, well, this is huge, but if it was a smaller one, right, imagine that, and I had a muffin paper in there, I'd be smashing my muffin every time. That's ridiculous, right? So I'm just gonna keep that one empty, because then I can grab the tray from anywhere and I don't mess any up. Take a little, oh, this is like money, okay? This is an exact science when you use this. I think it's a tablespoon, and it gives you exact same size every single time. That's why I love this. And I'm gonna fill it up level, same as the other measuring. And that way everyone is identical, and nobody feels sad or left out. And they're all the same. All right, so I'm gonna get all that scooped out. Then on top of each, take a little bit of the crumb topping, and then you can put it all over. Right? And then bake them. And you will be able to test these when they're finished with a toothpick. You will be able to tell when they're done with the toothpick. If the toothpick comes out with raw batter on it, that means there's still raw batter inside. If it comes out dry and clean, that means it's completely baked, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and fill all these, get these in the oven, and then I'll show you when they're finished. Okay, if you don't have that cookie scoop at home, 2 spoons works really well. Use 1 scoop, 1 spoon to scoop it up, and then the other spoon will do the pushing. It works just about the same, and you really will train your eye to make sure that they're all even. So use 1 spoon to scoop, and then 1 spoon to push. Okay? Well, they're ready. Nothing makes my house smell as good as baking, especially when it's with cinnamon and blueberries. Amazing. Remember, only fill them up about 2/3 of the way full before baking. Don't fill your muffins all the way up unless you want that huge, giant muffin top, okay? 2/3 of the way full with raw batter is plenty. These went for about 15 minutes. Right, and you can see, oh my goodness, look at all that crumbly crumb topping. Just gorgeous. Yeah. So thanks for watching today. Let me know if you make them down below. All right, see you next time.